All right, let's dive into a really fascinating puzzle today, one that comes from the brilliant work of Clayton Christensen. And the puzzle is this: why do the very best companies, the ones that seem to do everything right, so often end up completely failing?
I mean, really, think about it for a second. This is a question that must haunt every single CEO. Picture it. You are at the top of your game. Your customers absolutely love you. Your profits are just soaring. And then, almost overnight, you become irrelevant. What in the world goes wrong?
So, what's the answer? Well, the first and most obvious suspect is always bad management, right? It has to be. But here's the thing. Christensen's research shows this is completely wrong. In fact, he argues the problem isn't weak leadership at all. It's that these companies are often, and this is the crazy part, brilliantly managed.
And it's not because they're afraid to take big swings either. Just look back through history. You've got IBM betting its entire company on the System 360 computer and winning. You've got DuPont spending the equivalent of billions of dollars today on a new kind of rubber and losing. These companies aren't afraid of risk. Heck, they manage massive risk for a living. So here it is. This is the crucial paradox at the heart of it all. The very practices that are essential for success, the things that build an empire, like focusing on your most profitable customers or investing in the most profitable areas, can be the very things that cause you to fail. That's the mystery we're going to solve today. Right, so let's dig into this good manager's paradox. How can doing all the right things lead to the absolute wrong outcome? It sounds completely impossible, but believe me, it happens all the time. Okay, take a look at this list. This stuff looks like it's ripped straight out of Business 101, doesn't it? Listen to your best customers, invest in what they want, go for higher profit margins, target the biggest markets. I mean, these are the rational, sensible decisions that every single good manager is taught to make. But, and this is the big but, this exact way of thinking creates a massive blind spot, a really, really dangerous one. So how do we understand this blind spot? Well, the key, the absolute key, is realizing that not all innovation is the same. There are two totally different types. And once you see the difference, everything starts to make sense. First up, you've got what's called sustaining innovation. This is the kind of progress that big, successful companies are amazing at. It's all about making good products even better for your existing customers. Intel makes a faster chip. Samsung makes a TV with an even clearer, sharper picture. It's this constant, predictable march up market, always serving those best customers who are willing to pay more for better performance. But then you have this other beast entirely, disruptive innovation. Now, this isn't about making products better. It's about making them more accessible. And here's the crazy part. At first, these things often look like toys. By all the traditional ways we measure performance, they're objectively worse than what the big companies are selling. And that is the absolute key. That's precisely why the big, smart companies totally ignore them. Okay, let's put these two side by side, because this really makes it crystal clear. On one hand, sustaining innovation is all about making better products for your most profitable customers. It fits perfectly with your current business model. But then you look at disruptive innovation, and its goal is totally different. It's about making things more accessible. It targets the low end of the market, or even people who aren't customers at all. And look at that last point. It undermines the current business model. So, of course, you can see why any rational manager would look at this and say, yeah, let's stick with the sustaining stuff. All right, theory is great, but let's make this real. Let's look at a classic story that shows exactly how this plays out. It's the story of two radios. Okay, picture this. It's the 1950s. The undisputed king of home electronics is RCA, and they build these absolutely magnificent tube radios. We're not talking about little boxes. These were beautiful pieces of furniture for the living room, and they delivered this rich, warm, high-fidelity sound. Their best customers just wanted more of the same, but better. And RCA, being a great company, was more than happy to give it to them. And then, along comes this little upstart named Sony with a new thing called a transistor radio. And let's be clear, by every single metric that RCA's customers cared about, this thing was a piece of junk. The sound was tinny, it was full of static, it was, without a doubt, an objectively worse product. So the managers at RCA looked at it, probably had a good laugh, and very rationally dismissed it. Why? Because their customers would never buy such a terrible-sounding thing. And you know what? They were absolutely right. Their customers wouldn't buy it. But here's the genius part. Sony wasn't trying to sell to RCA's customers.
RCA was on this upward trajectory, making better products for the established market. Sony came in from a totally different angle from the bottom. They were selling to a whole new group, teenagers, kids who didn't have a radio at all. For them, the competition wasn't a big, beautiful RCA radio. The competition was silence. So a cheap, portable radio that they could listen to rock and roll away from their parents, that wasn't a step down, that was an absolute miracle. Sony didn't steal RCA's market, they created a brand new one. This whole story perfectly sets up one of the most powerful ideas in this entire theory. It's a concept called jobs to be done. The idea is simple but profound. People don't really buy products. They hire them to do a specific job in their lives. Just think about it. What job did you hire a BlackBerry for back in the day? Not just to do email. The real job was to make productive use of all those little 5-minute pockets of downtime. Or QuickBooks. Small business owners didn't hire it to become accountants. No way. They hired it for a much simpler job. Help me get a basic handle on my cash flow without a huge headache. Or, I love this hypothetical, a service called Zubrala.com, basically Crammer.com. Students wouldn't hire it to learn. They'd hire it to pass this exam with the absolute minimum effort possible. When you think in terms of jobs, you see a whole world of opportunities. Okay, so this brings us to the big question. If you're a successful company, how in the world do you avoid this trap? How can you possibly go after these disruptive ideas when your entire organization is designed to kill them on sight? Well, the answer is both radical and surprisingly simple. You can't. You just can't do it inside the main company. The only way is to create a totally separate, completely independent organization whose only job is to go after that disruptive idea. And when we say separate, we mean totally separate. This new venture needs its own cost structure because it's going to be chasing much smaller profit margins. It needs its own processes because the main company's processes are all built for massive scale, not for exploration. And most importantly, it has to have its own values. This little team has to be allowed to get excited about tiny wins in small markets, the exact same markets the big parent company is trained to ignore. Look, it really all comes down to this. An organization cannot disrupt itself. It just can't. A big company is like a finely tuned machine, built to do what it already does, just better and more efficiently. You can't just rewire that machine to suddenly attack its own business model. Trying to grow a disruptive idea inside a big company is like trying to plant a tiny sapling in the shadow of a giant oak tree. It's never going to get the sunlight or resources it needs to survive. So that leaves us with one last big question to think about. If true disruption almost always starts out looking like a cheap toy, if it starts by serving some overlooked customer or by solving a problem in a simpler, kind of worse way, then where is the next big disruptor hiding right now? Look around you. It's probably something that all the smart experts are laughing at and dismissing as irrelevant this very minute.